So as I said, we are equating both the innocent and the robber, putting them in the same category. Ladies and gentlemen, I feel that Pakistan's reliance on covert war through terrorism is not likely to change in the coming years. Its intensity may vary, but the strategy that they have adopted is unlikely to change. I can't see the present Prime Minister of Pakistan taking control over its army. And if he cannot take control, whatever good intentions he may show in public cannot be implemented. How can peace talks between the two countries take place when one indulges in blatant acts of terror and continues to breach the ceasefire agreement? So the talks have to be made conditional, and we cannot afford a soft response on this important debate. Eventually, the Pakistan government needs to be made accountable for all such acts. We have to stop this, and we cannot afford to show weakness on our border. You know, I had to send a note to somebody very senior a few days ago. I said that right from the time I got my commission, we were taught and we trained our soldiers to be proactive tactically along the line of control. Dominate the line of control. This is what we used to say. I'm sure all soldiers sitting here would recognize that. Which meant that tit for tat, which meant take offensive action at the local level, if you have to. Dominate the line of control. When the orders are reversed, what do? You just keep waiting for something to happen to you so that you can react. He says, General Sahib, ye firing band karao, line of control ke upar. I'm giving you the line of this. He says, Sahib, ye firing band karao. You know, this was soon after Lahore and all that dialogue. So I told him, I said, sir, I'm sorry, but I cannot give those orders. So he looked at me and said, Kyo? I said, हमने उन soldiers को वहाँ पर post किया है to ensure that there is no infiltration, to ensure that there is no encroachment of our territory, and to give a reply if something nasty happens from the other side. How can I tell them that you don't fire when there is infiltration taking place? You don't fire when there is no encroachment, when there is encroachment taking place? So then why have you posted them there? He kept quiet, didn't say anything after that to me. Neither did he ever said to me, in any case after that we had this Kargil war, so he, totally he realized what we were saying. But if we continue to adopt an attitude like that, and we keep on questioning our commanders, local commanders, again and again, why has this happened, ye kyun hua, wo kyun hua, and seeing the diplomats and the bureaucrats in the Ministry of Defense doing that, our military commanders have also started questioning again and again, ki kyun hua, kya hua. So what do you expect the man on the line of control? He becomes defensive, he says, main kyun galti karu? So that is a problem that is taking place, and unless we adopt a proper strategy backed by the politicians, he gave the right kind of orders. Okay, let me come to the more important part. What are the major areas of concern? Let me first reveal to you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have no national security policy in our country. A national security policy which is a combination of diplomacy, defense, economic, home, all these things together. We keep on writing all kinds of papers, but there are many drafts made, drafts go up and down. Till today, there is no national security policy announced by the government. In USA, every new president issues a national security policy, and if he's staying longer, you will find every 3 or 4 years there will be a national security policy paper. In our case, we don't want to talk about it. policies are made in compartments. Whatever the diplomats are doing in the Ministry of External Affairs, the Ministry of Defense doesn't get to know much. कि ये क्या हो रहा है? Particularly on China, I can say that. There's hardly any coordination. Our defense policy, therefore, is neither clear nor consistent. कभी हम बोल देते हैं in the annual report that is presented to the Parliament that China is enemy number one, or and sometimes after 2 years you'll find वो बात ही नहीं करते उसके बारे में. We just don't want to talk about it at all. In our annual report to the Parliament. Problem is that today our policies, as far as the defense is concerned, they have become servant of people in the Ministry of External Affairs, Foreign Affairs. Our policies are being dictated by them. And they think that their job is, they can avoid war, they can avoid this thing, and either the Ministry of External Affairs or the Prime Minister's office. And they do not need to consult. As far as the armed forces are concerned, sometimes we are invited to the Cabinet Committee of Security for consultation. When it comes to equipment, etc., we are not invited. All that is done by the Secretary, who is 3-star equivalent, who is junior to any chief. And the politicians is becoming more and more dependent on the secretaries. If he wants to know कि क्या हुआ border के ऊपर, I recently wrote in a newspaper, he called the defense secretary and not the army chief, the prime minister. So I wrote it, I said, what is wrong? Very time के ऊपर, I remember Mr. Gujral once rang me up at 11:30 at night because he had a conversation with Nawaz Sharif on the other side. Soon after I had taken over. But, and as a result, India is following absolutely naive, pleasing, I would say, at any cost foreign policy, devoid of ground realities. And on the ground, unfortunately, almost we are tending to show the other cheek. I mean, recently we have shown some aggressiveness against Pakistan, just recently. When I'm remembering that note that I also said, so what is going on? So long-term national interest, ladies and gentlemen, which require a good knowledge of your history and an even better view of the future. That sense is not there today. They do not matter. The armed forces are neglected in peacetime. We are not equipping them the way we should. We keep surrendering money. And we do not make any purchases from outside, no acquisition plans. We neglect it in peacetime. And when the nation is confronted with a war situation, as it happened in 1962, then we are asked to make sacrifices. Or kya hoga? That is something, I just cannot accept it. Let me just read out what Economist, that very famous magazine, some of you I'm sure will be reading that, they wrote just a few months ago. It said, India's political class shows no sign of knowing or caring how the country's military clout should be deployed. India and its leaders show little interest in military or strategic issues. Ministry of Defense is woefully ignorant on military matters. Civil servants pass through the ministry rather than making policies or careers there. I'm not saying this. This is written in The Economist just a few months ago. What are the other problems? We all know that modernization of the armed forces is lagging behind because there is no holistic defense planning. It is all ad hoc. We make 5 years plan, never get implemented. even if you get money. Complex acquisition procedures, fear of scams, and Mr. Antony is known for worrying too much about the scams, and totally inadequate self-reliance. Despite a large network of DRDO laboratories, I think there are 53 or 54, 39 ordnance factories, 9 defense PSUs, we import over 70% of our weapons and equipment. You know, we faced tremendous difficulties in Kargil war. And one day, I think you would have probably read, when some journalist asked me, he says, oh, you keep on complaining ki hathiyar nahi hai, how are you going to fight the war? You know, and it was a sudden question, and my sudden answer was that we shall fight with whatever we have. In any case, what else do you do? Can you imagine that some secretaries went and reported against me to the Prime Minister? So one day the Prime Minister asked me, he said, General Sahab, aapko ye kehna chahiye tha? So I had to look into his face. I said, sir, I cannot indulge in double speak. For me, I'm not a vote catcher. I'm not bothered about what the politicians are saying. My clientele is the army. The day my soldier gets to know that I am indulging in double speak, he's not going to follow my orders. I cannot afford that. But it's going on and on and on. We are reluctant to reform the defense industrial base. I'm sure many of you people in the industry would be interested in it, which wastes huge amounts of money, supplies us with substandard kits, and leaves the country dependent on foreigners. You know, when Mr. Pranab Mukherjee was defense minister, I had retired by that time. I was very keen that our private sector should come into defense industry, because we've been dependent on the public sector for such a long time and got nothing really. You know, we were their captive customers. They could demand whatever they want, and they could take away. At one time, they were taking 80% of the cost in advance. So we had a meeting. We got hold of many industrialists who were keen to get into defense industry in Bombay. Mr. Pranab Mukherjee came. I told him there, in front of everybody, I said, sir, today these ordnance factories, many of them are producing equipment which any small-scale industrialist or medium industrialist can manufacture it. I'm giving you opportunity in Ludhiana, you would be able to, almost 100% of those items you will be able to manufacture. Why do you want an ordnance factory to make our socks and uniforms and boots and things of that nature? So why don't we disinvest some of these PSUs and ordnance factories and utilize that money to upgrade technologically the other ones? And the answer in front of everybody in public was, General Malik, that cannot be done. So after some time I asked him again, I said, can you please explain why it cannot be done? So he looks at me, not very happy that I had again asked that question. He says, it cannot be done because it is politically not possible. I wanted to move out one ordnance depot from Calcutta, put it somewhere else. Answer I got was, cannot be done. क्योंकि वो इतने आदमी वहां पर जो काम करते हैं, they will not accept it. According to a recent defense ministry report, only 29% of the products developed by the DRDO in the past 17 years have entered service with the armed forces. And that is why you ask any man in uniform and he will tell you, he says, well, the organization is a byword for late arriving and expensive flops. 10 years ago, or more than 10 years ago, soon after Kargil war, you remember there was this group of